Hi everybody, my name is Des. Welcome back to another album review. Today we're reviewing the latest posthumous record from the late Avicii, entitled Tim, named after Avicii himself. Avicii's passing about a year or two ago was a very unexpected and unfortunate thing. It's still very difficult, I'm sure, for the people who are close to him. And this album, in a lot of ways, I think was great in that it gave some sort of closure to his musical experiences in life. It gave a nice, almost a farewell to his musical career. And in a way, will allow those people, hopefully, to persevere and I don't want to say move on, because you can never really move on from something like this, especially if someone's that close to you, but that can just help them to cope with the difficulties. So, I really do love what this album stands for. I do think the music in itself at times is a bit lackluster, but I do think it stands for something really great. There are some really great songs on here, especially pretty much all the ones featuring Vargas and Lagola. Those people did amazing work on this album, and I applaud them for consistently being just great. The opening track, Peace of Mind, is this really fun, upbeat pop song, has a ridiculously catchy hook. I love the guitar plucking in there. I think the vocals on this are absolutely enchanting. It's a great song overall. Some other songs like Tough Love are also really enjoyable. Once again, this one significantly had Vargas and Lagola on it, where I really loved the chorus on this especially. I thought the chorus was beautifully sung. I thought the production was catchy, it was fun, and it was really just upbeat. The song Ain't a Thing featuring Bon was yet another really fun track on here, where Bon delivers pretty much everything he can on this song. Again, the breakdown in the hook is really fun, it's really catchy. The hook is really great. The verses are pretty nice too. They're really snappy, they're really fun, and it just becomes a really enjoyable song overall. The song Hold the Line featuring Arizona is yet another one of these. It kind of falls in that same vein. It has, that electro pop that you would come to expect from someone like Avicii, but it does it in a way that's really fun. And I don't want to say it's anything groundbreaking or anything really just above and beyond, but it's simple, it's fun, it's hard hitting, it's catchy. And I think it's a nice testament to what Avicii stood for in his music, where even though he wasn't the most revolutionary of artists out there, he did push boundaries at times. He did really propel the electronic side of pop music forward a pretty good amount. And on top of all that, he was just a really talented producer overall. So, I mean, with all that being said, this is a really fun album in a lot of ways. The song Excuse Me, Mr. Sir, once again featuring Vargas and Lagola, has an absolutely amazing guitar riff in it. It's really gritty, it's really edgy, it's really just really, I don't want to say aggressive, but it definitely has the darkest tone of any of the songs on here. And I mean, it's great. I love the kind of more distant, darkened and almost robotic vocals at times that are really fun, really catchy, and they work really well with the absolutely amazing guitar work on this song. I really just can't compliment the guitars on this song enough. They were done exceptionally well. I also really enjoyed the closing track, Fades Away, featuring Noonie Bab. This was a nice closing song. I really liked the beautiful string sections in it. I thought the very epic cinematic feel really did contribute in a lot of ways, and Noonie Bab's very soft, elegant vocals really did suit this as a nice closing track on the album. It really just sent it away in a really heartwarming farewell. It was soft yet epic. It was very energetic yet very mellow at the same time. It was really just a great closing track. So there were a decent number of really good songs on here, but unfortunately, aside from those, a lot of the songs do come across as really weak. The song Heaven, featuring Chris Martin of Coldplay, is a pretty bland track overall. The instrumentals are pretty weak, if I'm being completely honest. They're decent, but they just lack a lot of the power, energy, or fun that makes some of these other tracks so enjoyable. Chris Martin's lyrics are also a bit odd, I would say, where he's talking about, like, how you're flying and going to heaven, and I don't know if this is supposed to be a symbol for overcoming challenges, because I think that would be inappropriate, especially on the album of someone who's passed away, and for it to be talking about Avicii himself being risen up and going into heaven is also kind of uncomfortable, to be just so directly addressing his death on this album, and it just comes across as really uncomfortable for me. I always feel uncomfortable listening to that song. It's very unsettling, and not in a enjoyable and not in a good way. It's almost feels it's hard to describe, but it just is so uneasy listening to it, where the lyrics are just so blunt about things. It almost feels where I think I just died and went to heaven, and it makes you think, why would you write that? It doesn't make sense, because no matter what context you put it under, no matter what you think it means, it doesn't really make it any more decent. The song Bad Reputation, featuring Joe, I believe it's pronounced Jananak. It's okay. I do think the instrumentals were pretty fun on here, but unfortunately Joe's vocals really don't contribute anything to this song. They're decent, but his hook is pretty weak. The vocals are really disappointing, and he really doesn't add anything to it. It ends up being a decent song, but it's really nothing all that memorable. The song Freak is another one from Bon, and even though I liked the other Bon track on here, he really doesn't do all that much on here that it's enjoyable. His vocals are decent, but they really just don't excite. They don't fit the beat really all that well. And the beat is also pretty lackluster at times. The instrumentation feels really underdone, and maybe that had to do with his passing before being able to finish everything on here, but I mean, it still feels like a completed work, unlike some other unnamed album that came out last year of another unfortunately passing artist. This thing actually feels like time was put into it, and it feels like it was finished and not just rushed out as soon as the press was covering his death, which I can respect a lot. But the lyrics on here are pretty fake deep, really, where it's talking about, like, oh, everyone thinks I'm a freak, and that idea is never really expanded upon in a meaningful way, where it's showing him as an outcast, as someone who's a wallflower almost, and everyone mocks and of course thinks they're a freak. But unfortunately, this idea is never expanded upon in an interesting way. The emotions that go through one's head, the processes that one goes through when facing this kind of circumstance, just maybe the reasoning behind this treatment, and nothing is ever really put into it, and it feels just really shallow. The song Heart Upon My Sleeve with Imagine Dragons easily had the worst instrumental on the entire album. The strings horribly contrast with the annoyingly loud, bombastic bass drop in the hook. Dan Reynolds' shrieking, shrill, frustrating vocals make this track nearly unlistenable at points. I find his vocals to be absolutely disgusting on this song. It's just a really horrible track to listen to. The strings could be decent at times, but just the way they clash so in such an ugly way, with that horrendous, heavy, lazy, just booming bass throughout the entire thing, make it such a difficult listen. And then the penultimate track, Never Leave Me, featuring Joe Jananak once again, he just fails to impress. His vocals are way too high pitched. They're shrill at times, and they're just really bland. They they don't fit the more smooth and energetic pop beat. They're just way too shrieky, and it really does make this song a lot more difficult to listen to. So, I mean, with all that being said, once again, I do think it's a very respectable album as far as it closing out this segment of Avicii, kind of giving a nice closure to his musical career. It's very respectable in that regards, even if a lot of the music itself does feel a bit underdone or bland at times. Again, there are definitely plenty of really enjoyable tracks on here, but there are also plenty of really underwhelming ones. And I'll be honest, a lot of that has to do with the featured vocals on here. Avicii actually is pretty consistent in his production on here, but the supporting vocals just aren't always up to par. I'm feeling a solid 6 on this. If you check the album out, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Be sure to tell me how wrong my opinion is as always. I'll see you in the next review.